Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. It's now time for us to look at what the papers are reporting. The Nation newspaper with the banner headline, Amupitan, INEC to spend 1.04 trillion naira on elections. Others, commission needs on network. And then lawmakers approve bulk disbursement of cash. This Nigeria, INEC seeks 873.87 billion naira for 2027 general elections, earmarks 375.75 billion naira for operations, 209.21 billion naira for technology, etc. The Guardian newspaper still speaks to the Electoral Act. National Assembly tightens grip on public finance amid 2027 election funding debate. Nigeria News Direct, technology, network infrastructure at the forefront as INEC proposes 873 billion naira for 2027 polls. Blueprint newspaper, 2027 polls, why INEC can't guarantee e-transmission of results. Amupitan proposes 873.78 billion naira budget and 127,000 naira for each core member. Friday, Leadership Friday. At Leadership Conference Awards, credible elections, good governance takes center stage. Give us clean, credible elections, irrespective of method. Bishop Kuka tells INEC government and selfless service can transform Nigeria. That's by the First Lady Oluremi Tinubu. The Punch newspaper with a screaming headline, National Assembly to harmonize electoral bill on Monday. Senate reps versions of bill face final reconciliation. Real-time results transmission not same as e-voting, according to the Senate. Observer Times, DSS seizes El-Rufai's passport at Abuja Airport following anti-graft agency request. Action linked to ongoing EFCC investigation into finances. Security sources clarify no arrest was made. Measure is to ensure compliance with invitation. The Business NG, countdown to March the 31st. Banks race quietly towards recapitalization deadline. And last but not least is the Sport Life. Atletico 4, Barcelona 0. This is huge. Lookman closed the first trophy. F scores second goal, provides assists. Los Rojiblancos thrash Barca. All right, then, let's get down to brass tacks. Ria, Etoma, and indeed Olamide will be helping us to understand, put context into some of these papers. The Nation newspaper, and indeed this Nigeria, the same with the Guardian, Nigeria News Direct, Blueprint newspaper, and the Leadership Friday also says the same thing, regarding election. But if you look at the front page of the newspaper, of the Nation newspaper, the INEC boss, Joash is saying, Professor Joash Amupitan, saying that INEC to spend 1.04 trillion naira on elections. Others, and then commission needs own network. Lawmakers approve bulk disbursement of cash. So some will be saying, yeah, this money is a bit huge, but the thing is, if we do not budget rightly for INEC, then it will affect the outcome of the 2027 elections.
Well, people might look at the figures and say this is really huge, but when you look at the logistics of national elections, you realize that the man actually held his punches.
That's right.
In putting this budget together. 873 billion, that's what the budget says. And where I got a little bit concerned is he also said INEC will need to spend 1.34 trillion naira. So
1.04.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So what's the change? What's the change for? The plans he has. If you see the way he broke down the 873, 200 and is going for technology. He's requesting for a dedicated network for INEC, which will help a lot in uploading results from polling units and from every other place. I do not see the budget as being too huge. I don't. But the fantastic thing for me is that the National Assembly has approved a bulk disbursement of this money. If you remember the last election, up to the time where campaigns were really thick, INEC had not been given cash. And there was this, how do I put it, fire on the mountain approach that was used, which wasn't too good. But now that we have this approval at this time, I hope that the monies will be moved to INEC in good time so that they can put technology together. They can plan logistics better and so on.
Which has always been the problem. But Ria, let's go back to that debate of e-transmission or not in-transmission. The Blueprint newspaper is saying that why INEC, according to Professor Amupitan, saying that why INEC can't guarantee e-transmission of results. And he said because INEC does not have its own independent network. At the same time, he's also saying that there are prohibitive infrastructure costs and funding constraints, envelope budgeting, internet coverage gaps. So we do not have our own network, and we cannot guarantee exactly what goes on there. And we should not even be emotional, over the issue of e-transmission. We should rather stick to what we believe can be done.
All right, but just before I touch on that, I'll just quickly speak about this. I believe that democracy is priceless, but elections are expensive. It's something that we need to really, really understand. Now, they've put this budget out there that this is the amount of money that will be needed. My only fear and worry is that I hope that these monies will be used for what exactly they have stated they are going to use it for. And like I said earlier on, I think that was yesterday, Professor Joash Amupitan, he has a lot of work on his hands because these elections will determine, how Nigerians will see INEC. These monies that he has asked for being given to him will determine how he uses this money for the betterment of the election. I know that we're looking at 41.61 billion for miscellaneous expenses. I'm wondering what those miscellaneous expenses are, but these monies that have been put there, let them just be put into the right places. Now, moving to talking about the e-transmission, we've spoken about it a lot of times on this particular table, talking about the fact that we cannot disenfranchise the people that want to vote in areas that they do not have network. We've argued that is it possible to put network in those places, but it's quite shaky. It's not. 2027 is already around the corner. And for me, it seems like we're looking at electoral transparency and we're forgetting about the reality of things that can happen. Our realities are telling us that it's not possible. This thing may not work well for us. But we see the two together. They have said that, if technology fails, they go back to the manual one. The question I've always been asking is that how do we know when the technology fails? How do we know that somebody has not intentionally hijacked it? So it's a two-way thing to go. But all Nigerians, all I'm hoping for is for a free and fair election. And these monies that have been put, should just go into the right places, not into somebody's pocket and not into any snake swallowing.
Let's move on to the Punch newspaper. Still the same thing, Olamide. National Assembly to harmonize electoral bill on Monday. Senate reps versions of bill face final reconciliation, real-time transmission of results, not same as e-voting. That's according to Senate. So we know that the lower chamber of the National Assembly, supported real-time transmission, and then the Senate is saying no. We cannot do real-time transmission. Of course, we'll do transmission of election results, but it's it's conditional. So voter identification is also part of what they'll be looking at. Penalties and sanctions. Anyone who falsify election or plays any wrongly will be sanctioned, maybe 5 million naira or 10-year or up to 10-year ban. So all of this. If you saw a video, I saw a video of Elon Musk that said, "Listen, I'm a lover of technology. I'm a big spender when it comes to technology. There is no way," he said that in 2024, "there is no way I would recommend e-voting or he calls it electric voting. So there is no way I would recommend because it can be hacked." So if Elon Musk is saying something like that, and people are saying we should contract Starlink because it can provide internet anywhere in the world. So if someone like that is saying that, then what is the debate about?
Yes, there are other people who disagree with Elon Musk, like the youth who came out to protest the other day to say that they do want electronic transmission of results. But I want to focus on that headline. Clearly the Senate and the House of Representatives had a disagreement. They did not, the two parts, they were both divided, and a joint conference committee was set up. And so what we want Nigerians to see is one cohesive document ahead of 2027 before presidential assent. Our lawmakers have to be on the same page, whether there's electronic transmission or no electronic transmission, but the law must state one thing. That is the most important if we want INEC to be fully accountable ahead of 2027.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have to get it right so that we don't have legal landmines. Let's move on to the Observer Times. DSS seizes El-Rufai's passport at Abuja Airport following anti-graft agency request. Action linked to ongoing EFCC investigation into state finances, and security sources clarify no arrest was made. Measure is to ensure compliance with invitation. So there was this what's it called, rancor, at the Abuja airport, not the Ezekwe airport, saying that you should be arrested. And then the followers or people there said, no, you can't arrest him. You've been invited, why didn't you come? Our lawyers, my lawyer had actually reached out to you that will be coming. on Monday. So forth and back. But some people are actually reading politics to this because he's been criticizing the incumbent.
Oh, yes, a lot of people. If I'm going to give numbers to it, like 70% believe that it's politically motivated. 30% are saying, are you sure? No, let me not say 30%, like 25% are saying, are you sure? And 5% just don't care. I mean, it is, that's their game. We see things like this happen when the election is around the corner. And anything that happens within this period somehow will be interpreted to have a political undertone. If that man is being investigated, you know, his tenure as governor is being investigated for financial misappropriation, let us just see it as that and hope that the man can clear himself. Because when you're spending state money, you have to keep records that go with the spending. So I don't see anything really big. Is it politically motivated? Maybe, but is it not politically motivated? We just have to see. Absolutely. It was almost a film show at the airport when that came.
Absurd.
I mean, you expect that.
Ria, so I do not see EFCC's invitation as as a problem. It shouldn't be a problem as long as you know that your hands are clean, or maybe your hat is even as clean as a whistle. So if you are invited, of course, you should honor the invitation and do not read any politics to it.
Of course, I believe that if you don't have any skeleton in your cupboard, you should not be afraid of anything. And I hate the fact that a lot of people want to politicize things. And I'm not surprised. We're almost getting to election period, so we're going to be seeing things like this happen. But it's also a place for people to understand that while you're in power, you need to know that anytime you come out of power, you can be checked. I think our people need to understand that, our politicians, because oftentimes when they want to check you, you feel like, oh, it's politically motivated. But no, maybe they've seen some errors and they want to check it. If your hands are clean, you would go to the EFCC. You will show them evidence that, oh, I didn't do any of such things. So it's the way that we always want to make it look like politics. Nigeria is a free and fair place. They are not just going to arrest anybody, and just lock the person up. And it wasn't even an arrest. It's an invitation. Although I didn't understand what they were trying to do, like take him from the airport. I love the fact that
No, they actually took his passport. Just to make sure that he
doesn't travel again. But he had said
he was even coming from Egypt.
He had said in the video that he was going to the office. So for me, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I want him to get to the office. I want the investigation to start, and then if he's innocent, he's good to go. Because Ibrahim, this also teaches us that everybody can be held accountable.
Of course.
When the Malami case,
in fact, everybody should
be held accountable. But oftentimes in Nigeria, we feel like there are some heavyweights that cannot be touched. But right now, we're in a Nigeria that says that everybody can be touched. If you have done something wrong, you will feel it.
El-Rufai actually sat at the apogee of Kaduna politics or governance. During his tenure, there's so many issues that happen: insecurity, scandals, crime, etc. And to him, he also said he did his own positive role in ensuring that the state was governed accurately. But EFCC's invitation, if EFCC say we just need you to answer some questions, he's not the only one. The former Attorney General of the Federation is also facing trial. Yahya Bello, I believe so, is also facing trial. Not Festus Keyamo. This lawyer, this senior advocate of Nigeria, Michael Zekome. He's also facing his own trial. So I do not feel one should be worried if you're being invited anyway.
Yes, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission did give El-Rufai a visit, an invitation for him to honor their invitation while he was abroad. And his lawyers had assured authorities that they would honor this invitation. Unfortunately, we don't think that he did, and that's what led to the ruckus that we saw the other day. For people who are saying that this arrest was politically or not politically motivated, I will present you this information. Last night, he was visited by Atiku following this airport charade, and they had a conversation, and Atiku said to him, this attack on you is an attack on the entire political class. So I'll leave you with that. After this, Atiku visited him, they had a sit down. What does that tell us? Are we seeing a coalition in the world? What is going on?
No, of course, he's a member of the ADC.
He's a member.
He has a coalition with the ADC. So, of course, that's the politics
opposition,
thing, reading into it. But then, let's move on because of our time. The Business Nigeria is saying, countdown to March the 31st, banks raise quietly towards recapitalization deadline. And we see banks like the First Tier who are given a mandate of 500 billion naira. So the requirement is actually for commercial banks, 500 billion naira, that's international banks. Commercial banks, national banks, 200 billion naira. Commercial banks, regional, 50 billion naira. Merchant bank, 50 billion naira. And non-interest banks, 20 billion naira. or 10 billion naira. So banks that have actually met up is Access Bank was the first to say, come on, I've got the capital.
I got the
war
cash.
chest. The Zenith Bank followed suit, GTB, UBA, Fidelity Bank, First Bank, etc. But then banks, other banks like, I can't remember the bank now, it's also facing, so some of these banks might eventually be merged. We have about 85 of them, but they might eventually be prone to maybe 25.
If we have 15 strong banks that have very strong financial base, it's better than having 102 that are shaky. So the recapitalization, I'm one of those Nigerians that believe that that is the way to go for our banks. In other climes, insurance companies own banks, but in Nigeria, banks own insurance companies. So there is, for me, I think there's a conflict there because every bank needs to have the kind of financial muscle that will not shake it easily. That way, more people will benefit from their loan scheme. A lot of people will benefit from so many other services that banks can give. For those banks that have not been able to raise the cash that they're supposed to raise, just get ready to be merged. You might start talking to another bank of your financial level and say, look, let's come together, we can raise this cash. Let's come together and do things. There's going to be a lot of business realignment between now and then.
Matter of fact, strategic investments like lenders like Union Bank and Keystone Bank are reportedly attracting interest from foreign strategic investors, particularly from the UAE. Some of these banks will also say, please, you need to salvage our situation. Some of these banks, when they are merged, it might also create fears among their customers. But at the same time, it's also going to strengthen our economy, strengthen our investors' confidence, coming to Nigeria to make much investment.
I totally agree with you. But when you were calling all those billions, my head was already sparking. But because you know that I love money, but
but you don't like money bouquet.
No, of course not. That's tacky. But that aside, I believe that the banks that do not have enough money coming together is the best option that they have. That is even the only option that they have. Thomas said something that made a lot of sense. It's not like you go into every corner, you see bank, you enter one street, one bank, another bank. But at the end of the day, these banks, do they even have money? The most important thing is for a bank to be strong and have. Because why do you have a bank if a bank does not have money? So what are you keeping in the bank? Is it rice? So there are so many things. No, so there are so many things we need to look at. I feel like
there's actually Rice Bank. Just change to Rice Bank.
I feel like Central Bank, what you're doing is good to strengthen, our banking system in Nigeria. To also give, international people that are coming to invest have a stronger, belief in Nigeria. Now, if your bank is not mentioned in those names, you have now started to be worried. But if your bank is working together with another bank, I don't think it's a problem. Your little money there is safe.
Absolutely. So CBN is actually signaling a very firm stance, indicating that non-compliant banks could face sanctions, including dividend restrictions or forced consolidation once the window terminates. You see a CBN that is saying, listen, is that how you do it or you don't?
Absolutely. Recapitalization is a very, very essential mechanism at this point. It's for all of us. It's to push money back into the banking system and generate that money to make sure that we are more liquid. I've said it time and time again, Nigeria is currently facing a liquidity crisis. And this recapitalization will do a lot to help that so that we can all start feeling money in our hands. But I will say this, the extent to which a bank, adheres to financial policies shows us how much they have for us, their customers, and their willingness to stay in business, and how much they respect our money and the role that we've given them to protect our money and our interests.
Absolutely. There's lots of money that you have in the bank.
Absolutely. And I believe your money is safe, actually.
Very safe. Your billions are safe.
Okay, that's about it for the newspapers up for review.